TV18.
The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq post their best week since November as Wall Street rallies for a second consecutive week. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific trade largely higher, while the SGX Nifty is indicating a mildly positive start for the Indian market. Gold prices hit 9-month highs as cooling U.S. inflation raises hopes of slower rate hikes. Crude notches its biggest weekly gain since October, and the dollar index cools, and indicators point to rising demand for oil from China, although prices are marginally lower this morning. HDFC Bank's third quarter sees it report its best ever return on assets. Net interest income jumps to a 7-quarter high. Wipro delivers a mixed bag. Revenue growth misses estimates. Margin and deal wins remain strong, but guidance remains muted. Avenue Supermart's EBITDA and profit misses estimates as margin weakness persists for the company. The World Economic Forum's annual meet at Davos kicks off today. Ahead of the summit, World Economic Forum President Borge Brent tells CNBC-TV18 India continues to grow faster than other large economies and the private sector must continue to lead the way. Niti Aayog's Parmeshwaran Iyer says India aims to become a developed country by 2047 led by inclusive growth. At least 68 people lose their lives after a Yeti Airlines flight flying from Kathmandu to the holiday town of Pokhara crashes in Nepal. The country has announced a national day of mourning and set up a panel to investigate the disaster. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra and you're watching Power Breakfast. Those are the top headlines that we are tracking on this Monday morning. A fresh new week and a lot to catch up on as well, right? But first up, as always, let's take a look at what the Asian markets are doing. Taking positive cues from the global markets. Remember, US markets, they closed higher. European markets closed higher. So we have positive cues coming in from the Asian markets as well, where barring Nikkei, which is reeling under a bit of pressure, we are seeing green across the Asian screen. The Taiwanese index up 100 points. Hang Seng is up 20 points. We have Kospi leading with gains. That one is up around 0.7%. Straits Times is up 0.2%. So across the board, there is some green on the Asian screen. And this is after the inflation print that we got on Thursday. So that is something which is buoying the Asian markets. And SGX Nifty, as a result of which, is indicating yes, the start for our own markets could be in the green. A mild green is what the SGX Nifty is indicating right now. A 24-point uptick above that 18,000 mark right now. Let's talk about the U.S. markets. Wall Street ended Friday's trading session higher with the Dow Jones surging over 100 points, the S&P 500 up nearly 16 points, and the Nasdaq Composite closing with a 78-point gain. Both the S&P and the Nasdaq posted their best week since November, having gained for a second straight week. The tech-heavy Nasdaq was the outperformer for the week, gaining nearly 5%. The S&P advanced 2.7%, while the Dow Jones added 2%. With that, we'll move on to some important opinion which is coming in from Wharton School's Jeremy Siegel and Mark Zandi of Moody's Analytics. Listen in.
I think the Fed is at some time going to be forced to realize that we've really solved the inflation problem. I still think there's a chance to avoid a recession if they pivot. I hope. It looks like 25 basis points Feb 1. That should be the last one. Actually, the one that we had in December should have been the last one, but I'm not going to quibble about 25 basis points. Inflation on a forward-looking basis is very low.
Scenario, this year is going to be a struggle for the economy, given the high inflation and rising interest rates. So a soft landing just doesn't feel like a good description. I don't expect a recession. Recession is a broad-based, across lots of industries, decline in economic activity that's persistent. So I don't expect that.
All right, that's all the global market action and opinion as well. Looking good as far as the moves are concerned. But how will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have a research team to tell you just that. They'll tell us what the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. Hey guys, a very good morning to all of you. Vivek, let me come across to you first up. What is the market setup looking like today?
Well, good morning. It's a very important week. It's going to set the trend as far as the Q3 earnings season is concerned. We've already seen the IT pack delivering, slightly better than expectations, especially when it comes to the margin performance. But, this particular week, while we are looking at slightly positive handover from Wall Street. Friday, similar to our own Indian markets, Wall Street too recovered quite significantly from the lows, from the intraday lows to end the session with smart gains. European markets too continued to gain for the second straight session. In fact, European markets are at their highest level since April 2022. So that's a positive news flow coming in from the global, equity markets. Now, coming into the commodities markets, especially crude oil prices, they've actually seen quite a bit of a sharp uptick in the week gone by. Brent futures on Friday settled higher over 1.5%, coming in close to the $85 a barrel mark, while WTI futures settled higher by almost 2%, coming in at the $79.8 per barrel mark. Now, when you're talking about the Asian markets, indicating positive start, SGX Nifty 2 is indicating a gap of start, mild uptick, however. Now, when you're talking about the week gone by, some important trends that we actually witnessed. Friday saw a very sharp intraday recovery. IT metals top gainers week gone by. FMCG and telecom were the top laggards.
All right. Okay. So that is the market setup and what we can expect from the market moves today. Vivek, thank you so much for that. All the stocks that will be in focus today. Ekta is here with the list. Hey, Ekta, good morning.
Morning. Well, I'll start with a lot of the result reactions. Wipro, HDFC Bank, Avenue Supermart and L&T Finance Holdings. Now, Sagar Cements would be in focus because they've been declared as the successful resolution applicant for Adran Cements. Dr. Reddy's, they've acquired trademark rights for a breast cancer drug. Remember, we have reported that it is going off patent and hence it could possibly be an opportunity for Dr. Reddy's. So that stock would be in focus. Adani Transmission, they've incorporated 5 wholly owned subsidiaries. REC, they've signed non-binding MOUs with the UP government, which is worth over 1 lakh crore. And they've signed non-binding MOUs with the MP government as well. Sula Vineyards gross billing of its own brands is up 13% year on year. Wine tourism business is up 13% as well. Green Panel, they will be sponsoring the Delhi Capitals franchise of the IPL. Granules completed a US FDA inspection of one of their facilities. Lupin, the Somerset facility, has been inspected by the US FDA, issued 2 observations. Reliance as well as Airtel are in focus because of the launch of 5G operations in different geographies. HG Infra, order win for the Delhi Metro worth over 400 crores.
Okay, that's a long list. Ekta, thank you so much. So a lot of stocks that will be in focus today as well. Finally, let me go across to Nigel, who's joining in with all the cues from the F&O space. Hey, Nigel.
Well, morning. On Friday's trading session, we had a good bounce. The Nifty ended higher, and there was clearly a bout of short covering that did take place. And that's precisely what the FIs did. They covered close to 11,000 short contracts, and they added 5,000 long contracts, which brings us the long-short positioning. Well, the short positioning was at around 62-63%. That's come down to around 57%, though they continue to remain net short on the index itself. On the option side, there's no big direction you're getting out there. Yes, they bought more calls than puts, but on the writing side, well, they wrote both calls as well as puts in Friday's trading session. The key levels to track, though. On the Nifty itself, that 18,100 odd mark is going to be the important mark out there. So we need to keep an eye out. Remember, that's a bit of a technical resistance zone as well. 18,100 to around 18,250, that's been the congestion zone. On the Nifty Bank, if we open up in the green, given that HDFC Bank should react favorably, that 42,650, 42,700, well, that'll be a bit of a congestion zone. So both those two are very, very important levels. Let's pull up the Nifty levels, the technical levels. The 100 DMA, well, that becomes important. The bulls will like to go closer to that on a closing basis, and they'll definitely like to protect the 100 DMA because we just conquered that in Friday's trading session. The Nifty Bank as well, the 20 DMA as well as the 50 DMA, I said that that was an important zone because both those two levels come up for you on the screen. For starters, the SGX Nifty suggesting a 35-point bump up, which will not be too bad. You're hoping that you get some bit of a dip from there, maybe a bit of a cool off, and then you're looking to get in. But the 100 DMA on the Nifty becomes very important, which is at around 17,900 odd. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that, Nigel. So that's all about the F&O space, but there's so much action in the commodity space, right? So let's get in Manisha Gupta, who's joining us with all the update from the commodity markets today. Hey, Manisha, good morning.
Morning, Sonal. Thank you for that. Well, good gains continuing in case of commodities here, especially with the dollar index trading at a 7-month low, just about holding 102 right now. I'll start with the crude oil prices, which gained 8.5% in the previous week, and the pickup in Chinese demand and the Russian Urals in rubles trading at the lowest since November 2020 is what the markets are getting support from. Also, China reopening, the Chinese traffic, aviation numbers are looking positive as we've seen in the month of January, the first half, and that clearly has added premium to prices there. But the best of gains still continue in case of the gold prices. Trading at a 9-month high is $1920 per ounce on the screen, and the street is betting on $1950 being hit in this week itself. We have seen gold prices gain up by 5% in the current year already. The inflation concerns, weakness that we've seen in the US dollar index, and strong physical buying, all of those have been supportive factors.
Okay, so strong cues coming in from the commodity markets as well, and our markets also expected to open in the green. Manisha, thank you so much for joining us, and with that we'll slip into a short break now. When we return, Nifty big boys HDFC Bank and Wipro reported their third quarter numbers. We will get you all the highlights after this short break. Stay tuned.
The 53rd annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos is currently underway, the largest conglomeration of global leaders. The big challenge here at Davos that is going to be up for discussion and deliberation is the possibility of global cooperation. Fiscal space continues to be challenged and constrained, and monetary policy seems to run out of options. What can the private sector do to try and push growth forward? There are going to be several important sessions that CNBC-TV18 is going to be part of. We are the only channel to get 3 sessions on the Davos main stage, and of course we have a whole host of global leaders that we will be in conversation with.
Welcome back. Still tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC-TV18, and this is the earnings corner now. As promised, let us get you some key earnings reviews now. HDFC Bank reported a strong set of third quarter numbers. Abhishek is joining us to tell us what did the numbers really look like. Abhishek.
Well, the top-line growth for HDFC Bank has been pretty robust. The NII growth of 24.5% YOY is perhaps the best in 14 quarters, and 9.5% sequential growth in NII is the best in more than 7 years or 29 quarters. So core operating profit growth, that has bounced back strongly, given the fact that it is up 19.3% YOY, the best in last 6 quarters, and it's up more than 6% sequentially, one of the best that you are seeing in last 8 quarters. ROA or return on asset is at 2.24%, the all-time high for the bank. Gross NPA and net NPA ratios are stable. There was slight hiccup in the slippages, but asset quality largely stable on a sequential basis. OPEX has remained elevated given the fact that the bank has opened 841 branches in 9-month FY23. This compares to about 734 branches that they opened in FY22. SDB Financial, they reported strong set of numbers. The profit growth was nearly 65% YOY and more than 6% sequentially. Asset quality, that saw a sharp improvement with gross NPA ratio declining by 115 basis points on a quarter-on-quarter basis. So both in terms of NII and PAT, it's a beat on our poll. Back to you.
Okay, a beat on our poll. HDFC Bank, that is an important stock to watch out for. That will be reacting to numbers today as well. From banks, let's move on to the IT space. Wipro reported what was a mixed set of third quarter number. Revenue growth missed estimates, coming in at 0.6%. This is lower than projections of 1%. Margins, however, were beating expectations as well. Let's get in Reema Tendulkar, who will tell us more. But actually, let's do one thing. Before that, let's listen into what Wipro CEO Thierry Delaporte had to say on the third quarter numbers. Listen in.
As we are looking into Q4, what do we have? We know there is a certain level of uncertainty in the economy. The macro environment is showing a certain level of volatility. In some industries, more than in some others, we know that, for example, a sector that has grown tremendously in the past, the tech sector, is more suffering at the moment, and that's a fact of life. It's a reality. But in this context, what's actually very visible for us is that we continue to win in the market. We continue to win deals. What we are observing also is that there is a little bit of a delay in the way ramp up happen in the new large deals, in the new larger deals, I would say. And this, a little bit of a lag, is creating a certain level of the time difference for us in terms of ramp up and projection in our business. There is also, I think it's fair to say that there is certainly a certain level of volatility around discretionary spending.
All right, that is all about Wipro. That stock also will be in focus today. Time for a break now. When we return, the World Economic Forum is underway in Davos. We'll get you details after this very short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Still tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV18, and the World Economic Forum's annual Davos Summit gets underway today. Over 1,500 corporate leaders, 600 CEO and policymakers from across the world have come together in the Swiss town of Davos to discuss the most pressing issues being faced by the global economy. The theme of this year's summit has been set as cooperation in a fragmented world. CNBC TV18 Shireen Bhan is attending the summit and spoke to the World Economic Forum's President Borge Brend and Niti Aayog CEO Parmeswaran Iyer ahead of the summit. Let's listen into what they had to tell her.
Low growth, high unemployment, high inflation, and high debt. That is like a cocktail.
Yes, a deadly cocktail.
A toxic cocktail.
A toxic, deadly
that
cocktail.
we have to avoid. One thing that is working in favor of growth is the new technologies. We should not underestimate the power of big data, on artificial intelligence, and the new breakthroughs. India is now growing faster than any other large economy. There is a lot of optimism, and trade and investments have to come back. We have tripled the global GDP in the last 3 decades, and that engine that drove that was trade. Of course, we have to adjust trade policies a bit, not only just in time, also just in case, some nearshoring, there will be some friendshoring, but I hope that the big economies of the world, 80–90% of areas, they can still trade and not decouple.
We need growth with inclusion. But if you look at the number of social programs which the country has run over the last 8 years, what is really important here is that this program of basic services at scale, that's something which in the first 6–7 years of this government, whether it's rural or urban, there's a sense of security that no one is left behind. And I think building on that, together with growth, growth with inclusions is something which the Prime Minister is talking about. And in the end, the plan is in 25 years to become a developed country.
And of course, we'll get you all those exclusive conversations here only on CNBC TV18. So stay tuned for that. But for now, we'll take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast. Stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.